As you know from part 1, this is the main area in Denmark where my family originated. Fredericia and the surrounding areas to the north and west. In part 1 I showed you the church in Eggesko. Part 2 starts with the nearby village of Bogaskov. Bogaskov means beech forest. This is my mother's grandfather, Klaus Jensen, who was born in Bogaskov. It is a tiny place, and we just passed through it, so unfortunately I have only road sign pictures to share, but Bogaskov is significant to this story. This chart shows Klaus highlighted on the left with all of his ancestors to the right. As you can see, Klaus was born in Bogaskov in 1854. Here I've highlighted Klaus's father, Jens. And here Jens's parents, Lars Clausen and Gertrude Marie Jensdottir, my great-great-great-grandparents. I will show you the record of them living in Bogaskov. This is a transcription and translation of a census record for Bogaskov from 1840. It shows my great-great-grandfather Jens, who was the father of Klaus. He is living in Bogaskov with his parents, Lars and Gertrude, and a brother named Mads. Sometime in the 5 years after 1840, Lars, Gertrude, and Mads moved to Trolle, just east of Bogaskov. This is census information from Trolle for 1845. Here you see Lars and Gertrude, but no Jens. He must be on his own by this time. Brother Mads is still at home with Lars and Gertrude. And there are 2 children who may or may not be relatives. Our next stop will be Trollenäs to the left. As you can see, it is at the tip of the peninsula. It is all forested parkland. That is Christian's mom's car you see. We're stopped at the end of the road. That's Christian and me by the water on a cold, wet day. I went to the edge of the fjord and pulled some stones from the water. And I mounted them on a plaque for my mom when I returned to New Jersey. My family history with Vejle Fjord goes back to at least 1787 and possibly hundreds or even thousands of years before that. This census record is from 1787. Here you see that my great-great-great-great-grandfather Jens, that's 4 greats, was a fisherman on Vejle Fjord in 1787. To see where Jens Muller fits in the family tree, we start with Klaus, and go to Jens, to Gertrude, and finally to Jens Muller and Karen Sorensdottir, my 4th great-grandparents. Jens is significant inasmuch as he is my earliest known ancestor with the Muller name, and it passed down through at least 1 female. His daughter Gertrude, who used it as the middle name of her son, Jens. And many of Jens's children then incorporated it into their surname in one way or another. Moving now to the west of Fredericia. This is another tiny place, and we only just passed through here too, so no real pictures to show you, but it is part of my family history and I was there. Ingeborg Hansdotter, my great-great-grandmother, mother of Klaus, lived here just before her death in 1899. This is the church record of her death. It shows not only that she lived here, but that she was born further north on Jutland, near Jelling. Her parents are not listed in this record, but I know who they were, and even who their parents were. Jens, my great-great-grandfather, also died here, but in 1893, 6 years before her. This is the church record of his death. You can see that the surname Muller is being used, coming from his mother's father. The next stop is Bredstrup. This chart shows my great-grandfather Klaus circled and highlighted in yellow along with his siblings and their spouses. At least 4 of them lived in Bredstrup. Some of them were married there, such as his sister Anne. This is a page from the Book of Church Marriages in Bredstrup in 1881. Her entry is at the bottom. I put an English translation underneath it. She married Christian Hansen. One of her witnesses was her brother Hans. Two of Klaus's brothers, Andreas and Jens, were also married in Bredstrup. Here is another page from the Book of Church Marriages in Bredstrup, this time 1889. The entries for both brothers are next to each other on the page, even though they were married months apart. I put English translations above and below. Younger brother Jens went first on July 20th, 1889, and Andreas was married on November 29th of the same year. The wedding of Jens and Caroline was witnessed by Christian Hansen, the husband of Jens's sister Anne. In the marriage of Andreas and Marie, the witnesses were 2 of Andreas's brothers, Hans and Jens. Hans was one of the 2 oldest brothers. This census record from 1890 shows Hans living in Bredstrup. I inserted an English translation in the middle of the page. The original Danish entry is at the top, and the English below. You see Hans with his wife and children in 1890. Notice that Hans, like my great-grandfather Klaus, adopted the surname Muller, even though they were both christened Jensen. We visited the parish church in Bredstrup, where the weddings of Anne, Jens, and Andreas took place. This is me with my cousin Ip. As with many churches in this area, the oldest part of the building is Romanesque. You see Christian looking at the gravestones. The tower of the church is late Gothic. The porch that extends to the right was built in the 19th century. The door was locked, so we did not see inside. Supposedly, the church was built on the site of a pre-Christian temple. This is my cousin Christian and me in the churchyard. And here is a view of the surrounding countryside from where I was standing in the churchyard. Next stop, Garslew. My great-great-grandparents Jens and Ingeborg were married here. This is a page from a book listing the families of Valbu parish. This is the entry for Jens and Ingeborg. You can see that they were married here on April 14th, 1848. It was late in the evening and the church was closed, so we were only able to see the outside. But the marriage in this church of my great-great-grandparents, Jens and Ingeborg, makes it one of the significant places in the history of my family. The oldest part of this church dates back to the Romanesque period. The tower was built in the late Middle Ages but was modified in later years.